That night, on a rooftop in Buckhead, the wind carried the scent of jasmine and the tangle of laughter and voices. I was counting down to set off the pink powder cannon when I saw Caleb, my husband, smirk with sly intent. His brother stepped out in front of the whole family, raised a DNA envelope like a box cutter, and said that I was a traitor to my husband. I stood amid pink and blue ribbons. My belly stirred slightly. My heart beat one slow beat. Suddenly the door unexpectedly opened. A girl in a lab coat walked in, wearing a name badge that read, Tiana, holding a sealed envelope clearly marked with the chain of custody. She said calmly, "The real results are here, and that envelope was not issued by my lab." That night did not only reveal the baby's gender, it revealed an entire plan to swap a paternity confirmation that someone had prepared very carefully before I could take a deep breath. I am Isabella. I am not telling this to reopen a wound, but to understand how I went from confusion to calm. From the moment I was pointed at under the Atlanta sky, to the moment I placed my hand on my belly and reminded myself, "Baby, I'm here." If you have ever been cornered by a story that was not yours, stay. We will open the truth layer by layer. No need to shout. Here there is only clarity. This is revenge and resolve, where cracks are turned into pathways. If you believe the truth has a voice of its own, please subscribe to the channel, hit like, so the story reaches those who need courage, and comment where you are watching from, so I know I am not alone. Thank you for lending me your eyes and your heart in these first few minutes. We will keep going, slow but steady, until that rooftop night gives everyone back the right name. Weekend mornings at the Midtown apartment always begin with the sound of sunlight pouring through the window, the golden light painting a long streak on the wooden table like a little path leading out to the balcony. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the scent of peach cobbler left from last night, gently sweet and warm, making me think of the markets at Ponce City Market, where I still buy cinnamon, butter, and a few soft, ripe peaches. Hanging by the door is Jordan's Braves jersey, and I fold a hoodie neatly to set on the chair arm. Under the fridge, the OB appointment slip at Emory Midtown is taped with washi tape. A red circle around the ultrasound date. A small heart I scrawled beside it as if to tell myself, we are about to be parents. On the wall near the dining table, I hang a mood board for the baby's room. Patches of cream, a warm wooden crib, a moon-shaped nightlight, and a few fabric swatches I photographed from a shop on Peachtree Street. In the distance, Marta passes by, a sound as light as someone turning a page. The city wakes unhurriedly, and I touch my belly. Count 1, 2, 3. Breaths even and calm. Jordan walks through the kitchen in a falcon shirt, hair wet from just showering, carrying a second cup of coffee. His eyes today have a hard-to-name blur. Not exactly worry, but not as intact as those first mornings when we got the news. Since the day Caleb dropped a few lines like, "Should test early just to be sure," Jordan has gone a little quiet, as if someone placed a small stone in his chest. I open the laptop, type a few details, the cursor blinking over the open slots at Peachtree Diagnostics. The insurance recommends a paternity confirmation test if the family wants to have peace of mind before birth. A phrase that sounds both reasonable and cold. In our prenup, there is a small line sharp as a box cutter. The family fund opens only when the child is confirmed to be Jordan's biological child. Caleb once half-joked at dinner, "Don't let anyone drain the trust." Jordan waved it off, and I smiled it away. But I drew a small mark in my notebook. Note it. I take a deep breath, then turn and say, "Let's get it done so you can be at ease." Jordan meets my eyes, hesitates. "Yeah." Caleb says the earlier the better. I nod. Not because of Caleb, but because I want to lift that stone out of my husband's chest before it grows. I submit the test request. Choose the package with counseling so that later the doctor can explain any confusing words. On the table, I arrange the papers into a thin folder. The OB schedule, the test forms, the list of questions for the doctor. No terminology here will help me hear the baby's heartbeat more clearly, but organizing the paperwork makes me feel like I am clearing a path for a small being to come into this world with as few stumbles as possible. Jordan sets the cup in front of me, our hands brushing very lightly. "Are you tired?" I shake my head. Fatigue now does not lie in the body. It lies in the insinuations from those on the sidelines. I don't want that to teach my child about love. I want the first thing my child hears to be kindness. I stand up, straighten the Braves jersey, glance over the row of boxes full of colored pens and stickers I bought to keep a pregnancy journal. On the first page is a sentence I wrote in marker. Atlanta makes me love warm, sunny mornings, coffee fragrant by the porch, and the sound of the train passing by telling me that today will keep going. I stick onto the mood board a photo of Jordan and me taken at Piedmont Park. Sunlight slanting through the trees, the water flat. Next to it is the blurry ultrasound image, a small dot like a musical note. I imagine the day we repaint the room, Jordan carefully taping the borders, me placing the rocking chair by the window. Just an ordinary life, but I have wished for it for a long time. The phone pings with an email from Peachtree Diagnostics. Appointment slot next week. Bring ID. Samples will be sealed and handed over according to protocol. I read it aloud for Jordan to hear, keeping my voice steady. He nods, his hand unconsciously touching the chest of his Falcon's shirt, as if searching for a familiar rhythm. I step over and rest my forehead on his shoulder for a few seconds. No need for grand vows, only that today we choose to trust each other before the noise. I pour more warm water, cut a piece of cobbler, sit down and open the evening playlist. A few light soul tracks, 2 Latin songs I like, and a long enough stretch of silence to hear the baby kick. The window is cracked open, the breeze carrying the smell of greenery from the street below. I place my hand on my belly again and whisper, "Baby, I'm here." And in that moment, in a sunlit midtown, I know I will get through the tests, the appointments, even the whispers, by an even breath, by kindness, and by the name of my child that I will call, clear and warm. The days after that carried a strange smell of haste that I couldn't name. Jordan suddenly insisted on letting Caleb help collect the samples properly, because he knows the process better. And the two of them discussed how to package, label, and send by FedEx as if they were solving a company task rather than a matter of my family. The kit sat on the dining table. 2 swabs, 2 small envelopes, a clear sealing bag. I read the instructions carefully, took photos of each step so I wouldn't forget, while Jordan texted Caleb, "Come by this afternoon to pick it up. Send it off faster." I kept calm, spoke slowly. "Let's do it step by step, so I can be at ease." Caleb laughed over the phone. "Don't worry, I've got it." I pressed my lips together. The one who needs to be at ease is me, and the one who has got it is not my husband. Late in the afternoon, the movements happened so fast I didn't have time to blink. Caleb arrived, said, "Let me label it with the correct code," then scooped up the entire kit while Jordan stood nodding along. I had barely touched the sealing bag when he said, "Deliver it immediately, or we'll miss the pickup." The door closed behind him. I sat down, placed my hand on my belly, counted 4 beats. In, out, as if teaching my heart to remember what matters most. That night, a confirmation email from the lab popped into my inbox. "Request received. Please note processing time." I exhaled a little, starred it, then opened the calendar. 5 minutes later, when I came back, the email had vanished as if it had never been there. I checked the trash. It was in the bin, deletion time a few minutes prior. I dragged it back to the inbox, took a screenshot, sent a copy to myself. An hour later, the doorbell camera showed a notification. Caleb returned to the porch, picked up a new FedEx package to speed things up. I scrubbed through the clip. He bent down, lifted it, glanced around once, then left. Jordan's text arrived almost immediately after. Results earlier than expected? I looked at the clock. We had just sent it this afternoon, not even 24 hours. I typed, "That fast?" He replied, "Caleb says there's a priority package." I leaned my head back against the chair, my shoulder blades touching the cold backrest. Some things that seem convenient throw my heartbeat off. The next day, an unknown number called while I was making coffee. I hadn't picked up yet when Jordan's voice came from the other room. "The lab called me. I'm busy. Later." "Why is the lab calling you?" I asked. "I put my number for convenience," he said, eyes looking elsewhere. I said quietly, "The primary contact is me." He was silent. A moment later, Jordan's phone went off. The kitchen went quiet as if nothing had happened. I opened a small notebook and wrote everything down. The time the email arrived, the time the email disappeared on its own, the time the camera recorded, and the one question I bolded: why is Caleb present at every step? I didn't accuse. I only wished I were overthinking. At night, I pulled up the doorbell footage again, watched clip by clip. Caleb taking a box away. A few hours later, Caleb returning to pick up an envelope. I paused on the frame of his hand touching the seal and felt my skin prickle, not from fear, but from the assertiveness of someone who is supposed to be just a brother-in-law. I emailed the lab from a personal address. "Please confirm the chain of custody, who submitted the samples, and the exact time received. Kindly direct all communications to this address." I added one line: "Primary contact, Isabella." After typing, I closed my eyes. When I correctly name my own position, the air in my lungs suddenly feels wider. Early in the morning, Jordan texted, "I heard there's a preliminary result." I looked out the window. Marta sliding by like a silver streak, reminding me that every day has another train. "I will speak directly with the lab," I replied. I dialed the lab, put the phone on speaker, one hand on my belly. The person on the line politely confirmed, "We are not finished. Results cannot be available within 24 hours. I thanked them, noted the time, then sent a request to use official channels only. When I hung up, a sentence lit up in my head like a thread. "A strange smell. Haste. Phones going dark right when the lab calls, and my brother-in-law handling every step." That smell was no longer invisible. I stood up, nudged Jordan's Braves jersey aside to reveal the Emory Midtown appointment slip, touched the little red heart I had drawn, and told my child, "I will go slowly, but I'll get there." The truth doesn't need to run. It only needs the right door to step through. The next morning, I received an email from Tiana with the concise subject, "Copy of Chain of Custody." I opened the PDF file, took a slow breath like when listening to my baby's heartbeat in the ultrasound room. The form template was simple. Pre-lined boxes, cold, black printed lines. I read from top to bottom so as not to miss a beat. In the collector field, the signature was C. Reed. Not the name of the nurse who instructed me, and certainly not Tiana. I closed my eyes, pictured the collection appointment. I swabbed myself as instructed, put it into the sealed bag, and the collector on the form should have been lab personnel upon intake, or left blank for the check-in step. C. Reed, middle initial C, last name Reed, went straight into my mind like a red pen mark. Caleb's last name is Reed. I scrolled to the bottom of the page. The received at lab field. 7:11 p.m. Sunday. My heart skipped a beat. Then I calmly called Tiana back. She explained slowly, clearly. We do not receive samples after Friday afternoon hours and on Sundays. The system will log them on Monday morning. Any Sunday night timestamp is not according to protocol. I opened my small notebook, wrote, 7:11 p.m., sun, wrong shift. On the table, the coffee cooled to half. The peach scent left over from last night's cobbler suddenly out of tune. I switched over to check the ring cam. The frame showed Caleb stepping onto the porch, holding a FedEx package. A timeline ran steadily at the corner of the screen. I took a screenshot, saved it as ring hatuat 1912.png. In the tracking app, the tracking number reported rerouted at customer request, third-party authorized. I read the phrase third-party request over and over and felt a string in my gut tighten and then release. At least now I had language to point to, not just intuition. I gathered everything into one folder: the chain of custody PDF, the ring images, the FedEx log. I dragged into the folder a screenshot of the chat between Jordan and Caleb. We need clarity before the trust fund locks next quarter. A light little message, but one that set a clear financial deadline. I noted, 1843, Caleb pushing the fund lock period. These pieces began to stick together like brick and mortar. I don't want to build a wall against anyone. I am rebuilding a step to cross safely. I texted Jordan, I need us to read this set of documents together. He replied quickly, Caleb just delivered the results envelope. I trust it. It seems not matching. I placed my hand on my belly, counted 4 beats, then called. Honey, I said softly and directly. The real paperwork is saying something else. The collector signature is wrong, the sample receipt timestamp is on the wrong day, and the shipping route was changed by a third party. I'm not arguing. I want us to look at the same data. The other end was silent for a few seconds. Then Jordan murmured, Maybe the lab has a night shift? I kept my voice even. Tiana confirmed there isn't. I recorded the call as a courtesy. I heard him breathe, long and heavy. At noon, Caleb texted the family group. Here's the envelope. No need to wait for the lab. We're clear. I didn't reply. I opened the chain of custody again, circled C. Reed in red. I sent Jordan a copy privately, with the line, If you want to trust an envelope, at least let the envelope be in the place it was born. I felt I was no longer shaking like the past few days. When I can name each piece, the heart returns to its rhythm on its own. In the afternoon, Tiana stopped by, bringing a stamped printout. She flipped to the last page, pointed at the chain of custody intact yes, no box. We have not checked yes for this set. Yet the shipper's system reported rerouted last night. I nodded, thanked her. We stood by the window for a moment, watching a MARTA train glide by like a silver thread. I don't want to make a scene, I said. I want to do it right. Tiana smiled, tired but warm. Doing it right is often quiet, but it stands firm. When evening fell, Jordan set the envelope Caleb had given him on the table. I didn't touch it. I pulled my own document folder closer, opened it like opening a diary. The wrong collector signature, the wrong shift timestamp, the shipping route changed by a third party. On the other side was the email confirming the lab was not finished. I recounted each line to Jordan, not pressing, not overreaching in comparisons. When I finished, I added one sentence for the 3 of us, him, me, and the child kicking gently. Paperwork tells the truth, and if someone tries to bend it, we will set it on the table and invite everyone to read together. Jordan looked a long time at the see-read page. I did not ask whom he chose to believe tonight. I only poured more warm water, slid it toward him, then placed my hand on my belly and whispered, "Baby, I'm here." Outside, Midtown glowed late, as always, and inside I knew I had just set a solid brick. The truth already had its seat, even if someone was still insisting on setting another envelope on the table. The Emery. Midtown corridor's antiseptic smell still clung to our collars when we got home. Jordan didn't say a word on the way, just opened the door, set the paper bag with the clinic bill on the kitchen counter, then threw the envelope Caleb had given down onto the table like tossing a stone onto a lake. The paper skidded, forcing the air to pant. "Isabella, 0%, he muttered as if reminding himself. Caleb said get it done before the end of the quarter or the trust locks. Everything gets stuck. That sentence made me see clearly the invisible hand pulling the strings behind. He spoke in a dry, cold voice. "Explain." I stood still for a beat, my hand still holding the appointment slip for the next ultrasound, listening to Marta pass by like a needle tapping glass. "No way," I replied, and the words slipped out small like a prayer. I repeated what I had been laying on the table for days. The collector's signature was wrong. The sample receipt time was on the wrong day. The shipping route was changed by a third party. Tiana confirmed the lab hadn't finished. Jordan looked at me, his eyes darkening like a window that doesn't want to open. "I'm tired. Caleb says everything is clear. I don't want to drift in hope." He pulled a carry-on from under the bed, quietly stuffed in a few Braves t-shirts, a toothbrush, a phone charger. On the sofa, the falcon shirt he wore this morning was still warm. He took off his ring, set it next to the frame of the photo we took at Piedmont Park, his finger leaving a pale stripe of skin. "I'll stay at Caleb's for now," he said, eyes not on me. "Let's separate for a while so we can breathe." The door closed with a very small sound, but the room's acoustics changed immediately, as if someone pulled the plug from the floor lamp, the dark part suddenly larger than the light. The phone buzzed, an email from his family's lawyer, subject, "Separation Draft." I opened it. The black lines of text bridged across my heart. Joint accounts on hold, belongings to remain as is, prenatal visit schedule if needed. I sat down on the wooden floor, back against the cabinet, hands around my belly. There was a very deep fatigue not in the muscles, but in the place where someone had chosen to believe an envelope instead of the eyes that see me every morning. I closed the laptop, opened the nursery, the cream wall, the crib not yet fully assembled, the rocking chair just set temporarily by the window. I hugged the body pillow already familiar with the smell of soap, folded over on the soft rug and let the tears pass through like a rain that needed to arrive. I didn't scream. I let myself cry until the heavy part was done, so there would be room for breath to go in and out. When the sobs receded, I wiped my face, pulled out the prepared document folder, chain of custody, ring cam photos, FedEx log, Tiana's email confirming the procedure, the Emery Midtown appointment slip. I set them on the rocking chair, arranged in chronological order. Each sheet of paper was like a small stone I was laying across a stream, not to run, but to step surely. I drafted a short email to Tiana. "I need an official stamped confirmation of the sample receipt time and the collector's name. Thank you for standing on the side of the truth." Then I texted Jordan. "When you're ready to read this with me, let's meet at Emery. With a family counselor. I'm not arguing. I want clarity." I didn't expect him to reply right away. I needed to write this down for myself. In a story someone has pulled off center, I still have the right to set the chair back in the middle of the room. I went to the kitchen and poured a cup of warm water. The scent of last night's peach cobbler still lingered. like a promise that an ordinary life could continue after wayward paperwork. I added a small note to the nursery mood board. Keep the rhythm. 4 in 4 out. Outside the window, Atlanta's afternoon light slid down the rooftops, making the orange streak on the floor move slowly. I placed my hand on my belly and said to the baby, "I'm here. I will go slowly, but I'll get there." Night fell, and the apartment lacked a second voice. I opened the separation draft again and marked the spots my lawyer needs to review, not to fight, but to keep the minimums: the right to hear from the real lab, my medical privacy, and the right of the unborn child to step into a home not led by a counterfeit envelope. I put pen to paper and wrote a first line for a new file, a cover I named myself, The Truth. Then I turned off the nursery light, leaving the moon nightlight just bright enough. Before leaving, I rocked the chair once, very gently. The crib is still empty. The savings will have to be sliced thinner, but my heart has refused hollowness. It's busy counting beats, busy keeping warm, and busy holding a truth that soon will be set down on the table, in broad daylight, in front of everyone. The phone rang as I was folding up the separation draft and slipping papers into a plastic folder. The screen showed a desk number from Peachtree Diagnostics. I hesitated for half a beat, then picked up. A calm female voice, each word clear. "Ms. Isabella, I'm Tiana Grant, Senior Tech at Peachtree. We've identified an irregularity in the process. I can only discuss details if you consent." I looked toward the nursery still smelling of fresh paint, placed my hand on my belly, and said, "Yes, please help." Tiana paused for a beat as if to let me breathe, then guided me to sign a medical privacy authorization, a thin sheet that allowed her to share what I should have known from the start. I signed my name, and it felt like a door in the ceiling had just clicked open. The low sky of the past few days was lifted. Tiana immediately sent a first email, a photo of the original envelope, still sealed at their lab, with a received timestamp in the corner that would only be applied on Monday morning. "We've temporarily blocked release because there was an invalid reroute request," she wrote, with process notes. No receiving on Sunday, no processing, no such 7:11 p.m. as on that form. I zoomed in on the photo, clearly seeing the sealing thread still ridged, the stamp never peeled. The phrase "wrong shift timestamp" in my notebook suddenly had flesh and bones. The next email was an excerpt of the call log. An unknown number had contacted the lab claiming to be the patient's representative, requesting permission to change the delivery address. The string of digits matched the number Caleb used to call my house last night, differing only in the last 2 digits due to the system mask. Tiana added no comment. She let the data stand alone, as if believing the truth could stand on its own. I sat still for a few seconds, hearing my own heart translate into human words. Someone had tried to replace my voice on the phone. In the afternoon, I met Dr. Cho after the appointment. He opened the record, reread the notes from the sample collection day. Date X, at room Y, the assisting person was our clinical nurse. There is no one named C. Reed in this step. He printed a short confirmation, the words simple but heavy like a stone set in the middle of the table. What I remembered was correct. On the way home, Marta slid by like a silver streak, and I felt a second track inside me, the track of things written down, stamped, and not changeable by a single phone call. That evening, Tiana called again, her voice warmer after a long day. "I've gathered enough material to preserve. Don't confront this alone. I'll connect you with an attorney who works on medical privacy matters." A few minutes later, the screen showed Shanice, attorney. She arrived like an older sister. Few words, straight to the point. "From now on, all communications about the test go through your email and my office." No exchanges via relatives. If Caleb continues to harass, we'll seek a temporary no-contact order. Most important, preserve digital evidence. Keep original files, screenshots, ring video, logs. Don't delete. Don't edit. I nodded, pulling the document folder closer to me like hugging a warm blanket. Shanice helped me draft a short email, not angry, just frank. Request the lab to confirm in writing the chain of custody, the name of the first receiver at the lab, and the log of all reroute requests. Request FedEx to send the official log regarding the third-party request. Ask Jordan to return any envelopes related to the test to their issuing source for verification, and from now on, use only my primary contact number. I reread it and felt the wording line up like bricks in a straight row. No threats, no clutter, just a request for the clarity I deserve. When I hung up, the apartment was as quiet as an Atlanta evening after rain. I brought 3 cups of warm water onto the balcony, one for me, one to invite Tiana, one to invite Shanice, even though they weren't sitting here, because I wanted to remember this feeling. Strangers standing on the side of order. Inside, the crib was still not fully assembled, but now I knew which screw I would tighten first. I wrote in my notebook, plan for tomorrow, 1. Send the hard copy authorization, 2. Meet with Shanice, 3. Forward all logs to Jordan, 4. 20-minute nap. Listen to the baby kick. I placed my hand on my belly and murmured, baby, I'm here, and there are skilled people here with me. The breeze pushed the scent of peaches from the kitchen corner out onto the balcony. I closed my eyes, imagining the sky lifting a little higher. No fireworks. Just enough light to keep walking, step by step, until the truth stands in the middle of the room without needing anyone to introduce it. The next 3 weeks passed like a warm, slow-motion reel. Each morning, I stood in front of the mirror, placed a hand on my belly, practiced breathing 4 in, 4 out, until my shoulders softened. Each night, I opened the cloth-bound notebook and wrote 5 lines about my day. 1 good thing, 1 hard thing, 1 thing I learned, 1 thank you, and a small promise for tomorrow. By day, I picked up a few styling sessions at a small studio in the old 4th Ward. Hanging lookbooks on the brick wall, fitting a maternity dress for a client, adjusting a hem for a future bride coming to try on a gown. Amid the outfit changes and the sound of the sewing machine, I felt I was still useful, still helping someone look in the mirror and smile at herself. In the late afternoon, I went back to Midtown, opened the nursery door still smelling of paint, to let my friend, Maya, set up a ladder to stick glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, hang a cloud-shaped mobile, remeasure the distance between the crib and the rocking chair, so later I can put the baby to sleep without bumping into anything. She put a roll of light blue washi tape in my hand and said, label everything. It'll make it easier to breathe later. I laughed and labeled the small boxes, diapers, light blankets, bedtime books. By the window, Atlanta's evening light poured through the frame like honey, calm and slow. Meanwhile, Shanice worked like a metronome of order. Every 2 or 3 days, she sent an updated draft, a motion to preserve digital evidence, tightened for concision. A letter to the carrier requesting the official log regarding the reroute at third-party request. A letter to Jordan in a steady tone inviting him to return all envelopes to the proper lab for comparison. A proposal to refrain for now from direct contact if Caleb continued to interfere. I read and saw the sentences line up like paving bricks. No threats, no pleading, just a patient request for clarity. Tiana, on the lab side, was just as steady as a strong thread. She requested permission from compliance to deliver the original results directly to me in a public appointment, with the patient's own written consent. so no envelope would slip into the wrong hands again. I imagined us sitting at a long table, the red seal set down on the paper, and felt a little door open in my chest. There were afternoons when my heart felt tired. I brewed a cup of mint tea, turned on the ceiling fan, and listened to Marta slide by like a fine pen stroke reminding me there's another train every day. Jordan was still at Caleb's. Now and then he texted short neutral lines asking whether I was eating regularly, what the upcoming OB schedule looked like. I replied politely and slowly. I no longer tried to shake anyone out of their dream with noise. I learned a new lesson: stay calm, keep records, and let the truth do its work. Many nights I sat alone in the nursery, set the moon lamp to its lowest brightness, counted my breaths, and listened to the gentle kick in my belly like a knock from inside. "Mama," I answered. "I'm here." Maya brought a small bouquet of daisies and said, "Put it on the table. Don't leave any corner empty." I set the daisies next to the stamped printout of the chain of custody Tiana had just handed me. Papers and flowers stood side by side. One was truth, the other what keeps us soft. I also upgraded the small things, changed all my passwords, turned on two-factor authentication, created a folder Truth Final on my computer, backed it up to a hard drive, reorganized the fridge, prepped a few meals so I wouldn't have to solve too many problems when tired. One day, I took a late styling session. When the client finished trying on a cream dress, she put a hand on her heart and said, "I feel like myself." I nodded, feeling that line was for me too. On the fourth weekend night, Shanice sent an email. "Authorization approved. Public appointment with the lab. Thursday, 10 hours, at the compliance office. You just need to come. Bring ID. Let the wording and the seals do their part." I read the line, "You just need to come," and wanted to cry. Not because I was weak, but because for the first time in weeks I was reminded I wasn't alone. I closed the laptop, made a cup of warm milk, opened the cloth-bound notebook, and wrote 5 lines as usual. The last line that night was a note to my own heart. "Tomorrow, keep breathing evenly. The truth is arriving on time." That Buckhead rooftop that night was aglow with string lights, warm wind wafting the scent of sweet tea and pimento cheese sliders, Latin pop swaying softly under the Atlanta sky. I stood at the edge of the wooden floor, hand on my belly, counting 4 in, 4 out, just so my heart would remember the path to calm. Caleb leaned close to Jordan, lowered his voice, but I still heard it. Now or never. Jordan looked at me for half a second, then asked for the mic. "Before we fire the confetti, I need the truth." The music was pulled down like a half-finished breath. The back door opened. Tiana walked in. Lab coat, name badge shining under the lights, holding a still-sealed envelope and a stamped sheet of paper. She spoke slowly, clearly. "Patient Ava Carter has authorized my presence. This is the original result, still sealed, accompanied by a valid chain of custody." I reached out for the mic, my voice steady like a stair rung just tightened. Open it." The venue's LED screen split into 2, and then 3 frames as if someone were rearranging a puzzle. The first frame showed the valid chain of custody page. The collector box was an RN, the nurse's signature round and neat. The second frame displayed the reroute delivery log clearly stating the request originated from Caleb's number, the last 2 digits masked per policy, but everyone in the family recognized the sequence that had haunted my phone screen for weeks. The third frame showed the real intake time, Monday morning, correct shift, correct protocol. Tiana broke the seal, set the result on the lectern, and read each word as if placing a stone back into its proper niche. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Jordan Reed is the biological father. No one clapped. The sound of spoons touching glasses stopped midair. Whispers bounced off the canopy and then fell to the floor like a fine rain. I turned to Jordan. He was stunned, his eyes meeting mine for a long beat, containing surprise, shame, and something like a wish to borrow his old breath back. I did not look long. I turned to Caleb. "You didn't just divide my family," I said, voice even. "You broke the law." He swallowed, speaking like someone who'd lost his map. "I was just protecting my brother." I tilted my head, keeping the mic low at my chest. By falsifying a medical test? By rerouting the shipment? By borrowing someone else's voice on the phone? Tiana stood beside me. Not intruding, but her presence was like a straight line for a room that was tilting. Kayla, the venue manager, signaled the DJ to keep the music at a breathing level. The lights lowered just enough to see faces, no longer overwhelmed by color. In that moment, I felt a gentle kick in my belly like a ping from inside. "Mama," I whispered without the mic. "I'm here." Jordan put his hand to his forehead, then to his chest, as if trying to find his own rhythm. He opened his mouth, closed it, then said loud enough for me to hear, "I'm sorry." I nodded once. Not immediate forgiveness, but an acknowledgement of a sentence that needed to be said. Around us, relatives whispered. A few phones lifted, then lowered. As if everyone collectively remembered there are moments that shouldn't be turned into a show. I lifted my head and spoke to the whole room. "Tonight is not to humiliate anyone. Tonight is for the truth to stand among us. And from this truth, each of us will choose our own path." I handed the mic back to Tiana. She slipped the results into a plastic folder, gave me a copy, along with a very small nod that I understood as, "You went the right way." Kayla signaled the DJ. The pop of the confetti tube rang out like a heart springing open. Pink powder burst beneath the string lights like a rain of flowers. People were both celebratory and shocked, a few "oh my gods" mixing with laughter. Not laughter at anyone, but laughter because the knot had been untied. I tilted my face up to watch the pink fall, and felt a surprising calm. My baby is a girl. I placed Jordan's hand on my belly, for just a second, as if to let our child know her father was here, then pulled it back, keeping the distance needed for fresh cracks to set. Caleb backed away, his dry eyes unable to find a point of rest. I did not follow. My job isn't to drag anyone toward the light. My job is to stand firm so my child sees her mother doesn't topple. Tiana closed the document folder. Kayla closed the back door. The DJ shifted to a soft soul track. I smiled at the little one kicking, at the version of myself who spent days writing line by line in a notebook, and at this city, where dazzling rooftops can be both the place people cast blame and the place the truth is put back on the table. That night, the lights still shone. The party could still continue its gentle part. But in my heart, the only thing truly revealed was not just the pink. It was the feeling of calm returning, of standing in the middle, calling everything by its right name, and letting the rest fall on its own like confetti, beautiful, light, and harming no one. The week after the rooftop, I walked into the courthouse in Fulton with a heart that had learned how to breathe evenly. Shanice walked beside me, holding a thick file, and murmured, "Today we'll first request a temporary protective order." The hearing was brief, the room not noisy. I laid out clearly what had happened: calls impersonating a patient representative, rerouting of the sample shipment, a fake envelope, coercive messages. The judge asked a few questions. Shanice submitted the printed logs and the lab's confirmation letter. The red seal came down. TPO, temporary protective order, against Caleb. Right after the TPO, Shanice submitted an excerpt of the prenup, Section 7.3. Disbursement of family trust upon verification of Jordan's biological child. She placed beside it a printed screenshot of Caleb's text. Must be clear before the trust fund locks next quarter. The judge skimmed and tapped the pen once. Financial motive. Financial incentive. Established. The words settled on the paper like a nail hammered tight into the frame of the story. This wasn't just jealousy. This was a path of assets. No contact order, no approaching my home, workplace, clinic, or any medical event of mine and the baby's. The court clerk handed over the order. Black on white lay neatly in my hand like a silent but firm lock. Immediately after that, Shanice drafted a civil complaint. No florid language, defamation, because of the smears within the family. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, because of the scheme to swap tests mid-pregnancy. Interference with parental rights, because of the plot to cut me off from my child's truth. I read line by line, just to be sure my story was standing upright on paper. The demand for damages was accompanied by a request to preserve all digital evidence, a schedule for sworn depositions, and a court order requiring all parties to produce all related records. I didn't want to beat anyone. I wanted the truth returned to the right person. On the hospital and lab side, Tiana sent me an official report. The incident report had been filed with the hospital board and the compliance department. They recommended pursuing impersonation and falsification of medical records. At the same time, they updated procedure. All results for sensitive tests must be handed directly to the patient who has given written consent, not through family members. I pictured Tiana's future shifts. Still the same vials and seals, but with one more little latch so the right doors would be closed more securely. My marriage story reached a fork in the road also by way of paperwork. I no longer had enough trust to rebuild, and the best thing for the child was a peaceful home. At the mediation table, Shanice spoke little but precisely. Emotional abuse, deception affecting the pregnancy, and a severe loss of trust were the basis for settlement. Result: I ended the marriage. I received primary custody. Jordan had scheduled visitation, initially supervised until he completed counseling and a co-parenting class. He would pay child support per guidelines and divide assets on terms favorable to me because of wrongful conduct. There was a non-disparagement clause in front of the child and a specific co-parenting plan. Bedtime, doctor, future school. I signed first. My hand trembled a bit, then steadied. Jordan arrived 3 minutes late. He read an apology letter written by himself. Shanice required it be his words, not his lawyer's. He admitted he had believed the envelope Caleb handed him, had let someone else lead him instead of asking me, had hurt me in the most vulnerable phase. He committed to healthy co-parenting, to respecting all medical decisions made by me and the doctor, and to absolutely not allowing any family member to interfere with the child's medical records. I listened, not for satisfaction, but because the letter was a decent beginning. Even if late, Caleb received the restraining order. The civil case proceeded. The hospital and lab continued their internal process. I went home, opened the nursery, and hung another small frame, a strip of pink confetti bursting under the lights. Captured at the moment, Tiana nodded at me. Beside it were the TPO sheet in a clear sleeve and the co-parenting agreement signed by both parties. I brewed a pot of tea, placed my hand on my belly, and felt the baby kick like a drumbeat heralding a new day. Justice doesn't make a room shake. It moves in silence, through appointments, signatures, seals, and doors closing behind the deceitful. And when the Atlanta breeze passed the window, I wrote in my journal, I will raise my child with the calm that saved me, with words that are enough, paperwork that is clear, and a steady kindness. The rest, Let time answer. VO. Justice is not loud. It is black and white paper, the court seal, and the door closing behind the deceitful. Late afternoon in Piedmont Park, sunlight pours through the canopy like thin honey. I push the stroller along the path glinting with dry leaves, listen to my daughter breathe evenly, and then chuckle softly when a dog runs past. The wind carries the smell of freshly cut grass and the distant saxophone from the east lawn. Atlanta is gentle like a hand placed on the shoulder, saying, "It's okay." I stop under the shade, open the small water bottle, wipe my child's forehead, then sit on a bench and watch the lake reflect the evening sky. Sometimes memory appears like flashing frames. The Buckhead rooftop, the sealed envelope, the signature by the right person, and Tiana's nod. But today, it no longer stings. It stands still like a milestone, so I know I have passed. Best revenge is living well. My daughter laughs under the Atlanta sun. I no longer have to prove anything. The truth has done that. I name each benefactor in my heart. Tiana with the red seal, Shanice with straight-lined words, Kayla and the venue team keeping order, Dr. Cho writing one concise and firm line of confirmation. Jordan texts the schedule to visit our child on the weekend. We talk briefly, calmly, putting the child before all pride. I do not feel I have defeated anyone. I feel I have returned, living true to my name, loving just enough, and choosing calm once a day. I push the stroller on, past the lawn where people play frisbee, over the small wooden bridge murmuring water. When the wind touches my face, I softly say to my child, "Let's go home." The sun tilts. The shadow of the two of us stretches along the path, thin but durable. Do you believe the truth always finds a way? Comment. Truth wins if you stayed to the twist. Please like and subscribe to the Revenge and Resolve channel to hear more family revenge stories with real evidence, where we learn to stand firm, call everything by its right name, and live well as the most beautiful answer.